Dark Phoenix was written and directed by Simon Kinberg, a longtime screenwriter for the X-Men franchise. However, this is his feature debut as a director, and with this being the fourth film in kind of the rebooted X-Men franchise, he wanted this to be an opportunity for him to right the wrongs that he committed with X-Men The Last Stand and adapting the Dark Phoenix saga to film. So this is the second time that we've gotten this storyline adapted to the screen, in which we follow the adventures of the X-Men, this time in 1992. And in one particular mission in which they go to space, they encounter this extraterrestrial force that is causing some potential problems for the space shuttle crew that was up there. But when Jean Grey attempts to intercept this thing, even though Jean Grey survives all this energy being literally sucked into her body, this presents potential problems for her in that it doesn't really cope well with her personal anger and her issues. And then when other outside forces who present a threat to the X-Men attempt to get into the middle of that, we have a story in which Jean Grey is now a possible threat to the X-Men and everyone else on the planet. And we have an X-Men movie. Now you'll notice that the title of this video is kind of different than what my usual movie reviews are. I don't want people to judge this movie solely because of what it does on its own. I would like to think that director Simon Kinberg was very genuine in his intent to try to make an X-Men Dark Phoenix movie more consistent with how the comics were and more pleasing to the fans. But the fact is that even though this movie was originally planned to be the first film in a new trilogy of X-Men films, once Disney purchased Fox, or at least they started their negotiations to buy Fox back in late 2017, the conversations about buying all the Marvel properties that Fox owned at the time, like X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, all those things kind of messed up the plans that Fox had for the X-Men franchise at that point. You know, the New Mutants was supposed to come out back in April 2018, and now that's been pushed back to April 2020. I mean, at this point, who even knows if it's going to be released? And then, of course, Dark Phoenix was wrapped into that as well. They were already planning on releasing this movie in November of last year, but because of reshoots, and then this whole entire thing about Disney wanting to bring the X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I can only imagine that the executives looked at this movie and they're like, what do we do with this thing? And so because of that, a lot of the third act was actually reshot and reworked from how Simon Kinberg originally intended it to be, ultimately making for a movie that is a complete mess because of what happened in the editing room, and nothing really feels consistent or wholly satisfactory by the end. But I at least wanted to share with you the story of this film's troubled production, because I would assume that it caused a lot of problems for the writing team and the editing team of this movie to have all these executives trying to work out their own plans for what their superhero plans for the future would be. As a result, this it exists. I neither hate it nor have as many problems with it as some other people do. I mean, I personally don't like it, but I wanted to let you guys know that if you're going into this movie expecting to hate it, don't do so because, you know, you've heard other people criticize it or even me criticize it. Know that it is a product of a lot of cooks in the kitchen trying to figure out what they wanted to do with this thing. And it's kind of a tragic situation because there could have been a lot of great potential with these actors that are portraying the younger versions of the X-Men that were introduced in the very original movies, you know, like Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, Ty Sheridan as Scott Summers or Cyclops, Alexandra Shipp as Storm, Kodi Smit-McPhee as Nightcrawler. These are all very fine young actors, a lot of which I have a lot of respect for. So the fact that we're not going to be able to see more of what they could do with these characters is upsetting to me. In the way that this movie ultimately delivers itself, it didn't really seem to know what it wanted to do with any of these characters, especially Jean Grey. There are a lot of instances in which actress Sophie Turner was able to convey a lot of strong emotion and deep-rooted problems within her soul that could have gone to really interesting places with her character. And certainly with how that relates to Jessica Chastain's character as well. She plays the main villain in the film. But because of how this movie ended up on the editing floor and with multiple things going on and no real through line of a story, nothing ever really goes anywhere interesting. Honestly, the movie is just best to see these actors portraying these roles. I mean, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender have always been great as Professor X and Magneto. Then, of course, you have Jennifer Lawrence in the mix as well, who honestly didn't really feel like she wanted to be there. Her performance is very forgettable. But Nicholas Hoult has always been enjoyable. From the standpoint of watching these characters interact and the actors to enjoy each other's presence on screen, there is value in that. But like I said, the story never really leads to anywhere fascinating or interesting or even really have any sense of urgency or stakes. One of the key problems of the movie with me is that it begins with the X-Men being very respected by humanity. They definitely see them as heroes and people who will fight for the protection and safety of humanity, at least those who don't have these mutated powers within their bodies. And with where the story goes, there was potential for humanity to turn against them and provide a lot of interesting conflict and stakes for the X-Men to try to resolve. But that literally goes nowhere. Like, it's mentioned probably once or twice, and then they drop the whole entire part of the storyline. So that whole entire interesting aspect of the story is dropped. And then every time they present new themes, it almost feels like they were cut out just so they can reach the final act of the movie with this awesome train sequence, which was a lot of fun, but it was almost, as other people have said, kind of too little too late. I honestly don't really have much else to say about this movie. I mean, the visuals look fine, the actors are good in their roles, and there are some things that have redeeming value in terms of what you can see these characters doing on screen, but like I said, it doesn't lead anywhere. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that the studio executives who are trying to map out their plans for the future of superhero movies kind of allowed this movie to be run into the ground on the editing floor. And it's sad. So I'm going to be giving Dark Phoenix a C-. As far as an age recommendation goes, there's not really much I could say that is honestly too inappropriate for kids. There's practically no sexual content, and I don't remember that much language at all. And there are certainly some violent moments as well, but nothing that really stuck out to me as too gratuitous or disturbing. Ultimately, I'd say it's probably best for kids who are at least 12 years old. Thanks again for watching, guys. I know this video was a little bit different than most of my reviews are, but like I said, I wanted to let you guys know what the tragic story behind this movie's production was, and to help you be at least a little bit fair with your expectations when you go into this movie if you are going to watch it, or to kind of give you a new perspective on how this movie came to be and maybe how we should think about criticism for it going forward. But in any case, thank you for watching. Please hit that like button or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really does help me grow all my content here, and it will support me. As always, I appreciate everything you do for me in supporting my channel. Please check out my Facebook, Letterboxd, and Instagram pages for more content that you don't see here. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Have a good one.